Let me start off once more. Aloha! All right. We have somebody in the audience this morning, so let's start off with good morning. Will the Committee on Zoning please come to order? At this time, I'd like to welcome Committee Vice Chair Dos Santos Tam, Council Members Cordero, Kia Aina, and Council Member Wire will be coming in very shortly. Okay. Oh, he's here. Okay, great. Although remote oral testimony is being permitted, this is a regular in-person meeting and not a remote meeting by interactive conference technology under section HRS section 92-3.7. Therefore, the meeting will continue with notwithstanding loss of audiovisual communication with remote testifiers or loss of the public broadcast of the meeting. Members of the public will be allowed to provide oral testimony on all items on the agenda in two ways, remotely and in person in the council chamber. Persons entering the council chamber to testify are requested to spread themselves out. If the chamber becomes crowded, persons may be requested to wait outside the chamber until called to testify. Oral testimony will be allowed when each agenda item is taken up in the following order: remote testimony and in-person testimony in the council chamber. Before testifying, each person shall state their full name and the agenda item they are testifying on. Each speaker may not have anyone else read their statement and is limited to a 1-minute presentation per item. Once more, it's a 1-minute presentation. All persons who have registered to testify remotely by video conference or phone will be called upon first. When your name is called, please monitor your screen and activate your audio feed when prompted. The following are some friendly reminders and tips. Video conference from a quiet location if possible. If you are watching the proceeding on Honolulu, please mute your device at the time you are called to testify. When the timer on the screen reaches 0, please conclude your remarks promptly. For those who are joining us by telephone only, I will identify you by the 3 last digits of your phone number. When your number is called, please press *6 to unmute yourself when prompted. Once all the remote testifiers have testified, I will proceed to the in-person testimony in the council chamber. Persons who have not registered will be given an opportunity to speak following the oral testimonies of the registered speakers. Written testimonies, including the testifier's address, email address, and phone number, will be available to the public as described on the posted agenda. As a courtesy, please turn off all cell phones. Let's move on, members of the committee. The committee will review, moving to agenda item number 1, the committee will review and evaluate the building boards of appeal and make recommendations to the council on whether the ordinance establishing the building boards of appeal should be retained, amended, or repealed. Here in the audience would be our administration, and that is Dawn Takeuchi Apuna, Director of the Department of Planning and Permitting. Okay, she's not there. Is Mr. Christopher Hong? Okay, come on up, Mr. Hong. Christopher Hong is the chair of the Building Boards of Appeal. Good. Go right ahead. Please proceed. Oh, press the button.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm Christopher Hong, Chair of the Building Board of Appeals, here to present our 5-year review report ending in the year 2023, and I'm just here to answer any questions that committee has.
Okay. Are there? Okay, go right ahead. Councilmember Cordero.
Thank you. Hi, Mr. Hong. Thank you so much for being here, or Chair, sorry. And I was wondering, when you have the summary of how many appeals are filed each year, what happens to the rest of the appeals? Like you see last year, there were 20, 2 were denied, 1 appeal was withdrawn, and 1, the BBA decisions appealed to court. So what happens to the rest of the 17 or 16 appeals? Does it carry over, or like what happens?
So if you look at a bullet point or topic, note 5, we're stating that the average duration of appeal takes roughly 6 months. So depending on what time of the year that the appeal is filed, it may get pushed to the following year, or it may get rescheduled. So so when looking at the numbers, it's not a direct that we address everything that was appealed in that calendar year.
Okay, thank you. And so when there was one where I think 2017 or 18 that had 40 or so, does that mean like the appeals that were filed expired at some point?
To my knowledge, most of them have not expired. Generally, we'll ask the appellant if they want to renew, but we try and schedule them in a timely manner as possible. So if you look at the 5 years and if you tally the columns under appeals filed between 2018 and 2022, there's 85 that were filed. And if you tally all the columns on the right of that, we have 83. So that just shows that we're roughly tracking with how many that are being filed and appealed.
Okay. And if I could go to the page where table 3 is above point 7, where it refers to the costs for BBA, and there's a fluctuation. I thought I was going to see like a pattern or something for the compensation for BBA members and whatnot, but it seems to not really have like a pattern. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so the biggest line item is in 2019 with the code books. So whenever that city and county or state adopts a new building code, then the BBA pays for code books for all of its members. So that's why you see that large jump of $68.50.92 in 2019. And also in 2022, $6,247.66. So generally, those have been the biggest cost items, aside from the addition of a court reporter in 2022.
Okay, and can you explain a little bit about what compensation for BBA members entails? Because that also fluctuates.
So compensation for BBA members is each member gets, I think, $20 every time that they show up to a hearing. So depending on the quorum that we have, depending on how many actual hearings we have, will determine that the compensation for the BBA members.
Okay, and I know that, my last question is, I know that there's different issues that arise when different boards, meetings, and just different commissions meet. Does the BBA have issues with meeting either quorum or being able to meet in general?
So one more thing I wanted to point out with the compensation is I think during COVID when we were all remote, because the costs were reduced because we were only on Citrix, that's why I think the compensation was a little bit lower during the COVID years. To address your point about quorum and challenges, if you look at number 3, you notice that we've been operating with a minimum of members of 5 for quite a while, and we're still needing someone with electrical expertise. So, but despite that, we've only had 4 missed meetings due to quorum over the last 5 years. So it has been somewhat of a challenge, but we do our best and we make sure that the board knows that we need everybody to show up. So when scheduling the meetings, we try and schedule them for the year to get placeholders on people's calendars to make sure that we're meeting quorum. But it is a slight challenge.
Thank you. I understand that well. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to ask questions.
Thank you very much. Vice Chair
Yep.
DeSantos.
Thank you, Chair. I have 2 questions. The first is, does the BBA or is it DPP's responsibility to, I would say, track the nature of the appeals? For example, if we're starting to see a pattern of many people, with one particular type of relief that they're seeking, I mean, that would really help us as policymakers to figure out, what potential things we can do to maybe provide some relief in ordinance versus having to go to you all the time. Is someone tracking that?
Council member, unfortunately, no, there is no feedback loop. And so we have no interaction with DPP either prior to the hearing or post-hearing.
Okay. I think that would be something that would be really helpful for us as policymakers. So I guess my office will be sending something to you guys to get just sort of a summary of, I guess, many of the appeals that have come before you so we can kind of start to see what relief these appealants are seeking. The second question is, could you comment on the board's needs moving forward? We just talked a little bit about the budget, but just looking forward, I know that we're on the threshold of having a lot of new technologies, whether that's prefab, whether that's folks complying with some sort of alternate code, and they're going to be seeking, an appeal or relief. I mean, is the board prepared for perhaps more appeals based on new technologies that come in?
So I have to admit I don't fully know the underlying rules right now that regulate us to only meet once a month. And in fact, at the end of last year, we didn't have meetings scheduled in November or December due to a lack of a meeting space. So that was 2 opportunities that we could have processed more. In terms of technology, we obviously operated during COVID and still held hearings, so we are capable of doing things remote if that meant that we need to process more cases. One thing that I don't see on this expense report is the amount of printing that happens for each case. So in each case, each member is provided with a full printed copy of all the materials. So in some cases, it could be up to 2 binders worth of material. And so I don't know how that cost is being tracked, but that is something that we could look into, either providing or utilizing of digital devices to help reduce that cost.
Cool. I guess, I appreciate the need for, or how you're using Zoom and the need perhaps for more printing expenses. But I guess my question was sort of just big picture wise. The construction industry is going through some changes, new technologies, not like Zoom, but prefab and other things are likely to generate maybe more appeals as people, bring in new techniques and technologies and materials. Is the BBA ready for perhaps more cases that come in because of new techniques and technologies and materials that come in?
So sorry for misunderstanding the question, but yeah, so I would say the BBA, we're still reviewing whatever the currently adopted code is. So as the code has been changing, and it has changed rapidly over the last several years due to the state and county trying to catch up, I think we are heading into adopting 2018 currently, and so we've had, I think, 2 or 3 code changes within the last 5 years. But the members are chosen because of their expertise in their respective fields. So it is our base assumption that if they are able to be selected for the Building Board of Appeals, that they are caught up on the latest code changes, and so therefore should be able to answer any of the current appeals that relate to current building codes.
Vice Chair, any further questions? Okay, any questions? Councilmember Wire, any questions? Okay. Councilmember Kiana, any questions for Mr. Hong? Mr. Hong, I have a few questions. On your handout in regards to the 5-year review report, like for example, number 2, the year 2018, appeals filed was 41, and then as you go across the spreadsheet, appeals denied was 3, appeals withdrawn 4. Would the balance then be, what happens to the balance?
So Chair, the balance either gets pushed to the following years, or sometimes there's scheduling conflicts. We may have a hearing that is scheduled that may be due to the appellant or other scheduling conflicts may get rescheduled or pushed. So it's very hard to track it as a one-to-one. But again, if you total the appeals filed between 2018 and 2022, there was 85, and the amount of actions is 83. So we are processing at a decent rate, but it is, when you look at the snapshot, it is hard to tell because of the one-to-one. And again, we had 1 case last year that took up 3 hearings. So that also impacts the schedule and the amount of cases that we're able to hear.
Okay, thank you. The next question was, we've had some concerns about requesting the extension of the review of building codes, plumbing, electrical, etc., from 2 years to 6 years. What are your thoughts on that? Leave it at 2 years rather than extending it to 6 years?
Chair, could you repeat? I'm having a hard time hearing.
Oh, okay. The question that I'm posing is that, yes, you folks review, all of these codes that are reflective as far as what your responsibilities are, but for the council to approve the revised international codes that come before us and the building boards of appeal, we have legislation to look at extending it from 2 years to 6 years. Like what you just stated, we just completed one of the codes in 2018 that took us maybe 6, 7 years. Wouldn't the 2018 code then be outdated because technology has already advanced from the year that it was submitted?
So in terms of the board being able to interpret and rule on cases, we rule on the case as it was submitted and as the code was in effect during the notice of a violation or notice of order. So we do not take into account how the code has changed because, and we may, depending on the ruling, add something to that effect but we do not suggest actions. We are strictly ruling on whether or not to grant or deny the appeal. So we do not act and trying to mitigate the situation at all. So we are strictly looking at the facts of what is presented to us, and we rule based off of that.
Thank you very much. And then finally, the other thought and question that I had was the question of how much does it cost for a appellee to file an appeal with the BBA? Would you have an average or median cost that people, when I tell people, hey, if you're going to appeal, this is how much it may be, and we give them a range. No? Doesn't work like that?
So Chair, I apologize. I don't know off the top of my head what the appeal fee is, but there's a set appeal fee, but I do believe that the cost to appeal a case will be completely determined by what representation that they choose to have. So for the most part, we do see that the appellants hire legal counsel, but that's not true in every single case. We have had instances where they represent themselves. And so I think if you were to suggest a path to appeal, it is more determined by what type of legal counsel that they choose rather than the actual appellant fees.
Okay, Mr. Hong, thank you, because if we go through the legal route, are these legal counsels competent enough in understanding our building code?
I
know, I'm just telling myself, is the legal counsel competent enough to understand our building code? Or, having your architect or your engineer or planner to present?
Chair, I don't want to venture too much into my personal opinion. I will say we do see a wide range of strategies and tactics that the appellants will come to. So some will just bring their architects or engineers, and some will bring legal counsel, and some will represent themselves. I haven't tracked the success rate, and I think because the cases are so different, it is hard to have a correlation. It just depends on the strategy in which the appellant takes, whether they want to argue it from a code standpoint or from a legal standpoint. So I think there's a lot of variables that would make it hard to draw a one-to-one relationship.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hong, thank you very much for your public service. That's number one. Number two, of the 9 commission board members, you said just 5 are filled, the other 4 are vacant?
I think we have 6 right now, but we can be up to 9, and having a full board, especially having electrical representation, would allow us to really minimize the amount of missed meetings for quorum and be able to have the schedule flexibility to hear more cases. Because while there were 4 hearings that were missed due to quorum, again, we scheduled them based on the availability of the current the board members. So if we had more board members, that would probably free up more Fridays for us to be able to hear cases.
Okay, thank you very much. Any further questions for Mr. Hong? Thank you very much. Keep up the
Thank you,
great
Chair.
work.
Thank you, Council.
Yeah. Okay, we will now proceed. Oh, we have the director now of the Department of Planning and Permitting, Ms. Dawn Takeuchi Apuno.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Donna Puna, Director, DPP.
Yes,
So
please support.
I couldn't answer some of the questions that came up earlier. I think there was a question about changing technologies in construction. So like Chair Hong mentioned, whatever cases come in, they are based on when the project, when at the time of the notice of violation, the codes that were effective upon that project. And then when there are new types of technologies, we have like a methods and means, or M&M, program where we can look at the type of new technology, and if it passes, we can accept it as an accepted MM, and that's how we look at new types and integrate it into our permitting process.
Okay. Any questions for the director? Okay. On the Madam Chair, on the stationery for this building boards of appeal, I just wanted to highlight that how many females are on it? So maybe the next three appoint. Oh, maybe Chris, would you like to just respond to my question about maybe the next three appointees could be females to balance the board?
Yeah, so Chair, currently we do not have any females on the Building Board of Appeals. My predecessor was, I think in the years that I've served on the board, we've only had one female member, and that was the prior chair.
Okay, thank you very much. So for the members of the committee, that's your responsibility and homework to go and find qualified young women to be a part of this Building Boards of Appeal. Councilmember Kiana.
Thank you, Chair, for reminding all of the boards and commissions, as well as the administration, that they have to endeavor to be more diverse, not just gender-wise, but of course we have our LGBTQ community that I feel that they could outreach, and other underserved communities. I do know that the administration is going to be working with the YWCA.
Okay, great.
Because they have cohorts of leadership.
Yes.
That they have various cohorts that come out of the various programs there, and they're going to try to hui the women to also be a little more involved in sitting on the rather than sitting on the sidelines, and having us try to fight for equity when the Wahine are not even putting themselves forward. So I do give the administration kudos for diversifying the Planning Commission and now the Police Commission. And so hopefully for all of these other boards and commissions, even the current board members who are on there may want to kukua as well. But thank you for reminding them.
Yep, you're very welcome. Any further discussion? If not, let's proceed on to the remote testimony. Madam Clerk, do we have any remote testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you very much. We'll now proceed with in-person testimony. Madam Clerk, do we have any in-person testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you very much. Members, we are now in discussion. Okay, at this point, if there is no further discussion, the recommendation is that the chair recommends that action on this matter be postponed until the next scheduled meeting of the Committee on Zoning. In the interim, the chair will take the matter under advisement and prepare a draft report and recommendations for consideration at that meeting. Any discussion, any objections or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Mr. Hong, thank you very much. Hope to see you again. Okay, let's move on to agenda number 2. Resolution 23-19. This resolution amends Resolution 22-53, Committee Draft 1, to extend the deadline for submittal of the Advisory Committee's report to the City Council on proposed city legislation to streamline and improve the procedures by which the Department of Planning and Permitting reviews and issue building permits. We have here this morning from the administration, Ms. Dawn Takeuchi Apuna, the Director of the Department of Planning and Permitting. Ms. Apuna.
Thank you, Chair. We do appreciate this resolution to extend. We're currently working on a lot of streamlining, and so even with Bill 56 that Councilmember Tupola has put forth and that we've worked with her. It's one effort of streamlining some of the ordinances. I think next month we will bring another bill to the council that will further provide more streamlining. And we also are meeting with stakeholders. We have 3 stakeholder groups. One focuses on affordable housing, another on solar, and another on general permitting processes. So we're working with outside stakeholders, trying to figure out together what could be considered to improve some of the requirements and regulations that we are currently required to look for.
Thank you very much, Director. Any questions for the Director? If not, let's proceed on now, members, to remote testimony. Madam Clerk, do we have any remote testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you very much. We'll go to the in-person testimony. We'll now proceed with the in-person testimony. Madam Clerk, do we have any in-person testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, let's proceed on, members. We are in discussion. Oh, Councilmember Meyer, yes.
Apologies, Chair Moholo. I actually was gonna, I don't know if Director knows, but I was just gonna ask when they intend
Yes.
to have their first meeting.
What's that?
When the group intends to have its first meeting, or do we know?
The group that we have, our stakeholder groups?
Yeah, the stakeholder group.
So it depends. We've already kind of been communicating by email, but it just depends on what issue. We try to make it issue-based. So we bring forth certain like proposed bills or issues, but we can let you know when those are going to be scheduled. We usually do like Zoom sessions.
Okay.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Okay, any further discussion? Vice Chair DeSantos Tan.
So building on Councilmember Wyer's question, the report in the underlying resolution is due within 6 months of the adoption of the resolution. And this proposal would extend the deadline to 6 months after the committee's first meeting. So just to build off his question, when was that first meeting? So then we know when the report's due.
So, well, we have had like 3, so we have 3 task forces. We've had like smaller meetings. I'd say we haven't yet had overall meeting but they're soon to come. So maybe that would be the date in an upcoming, within the next month meeting.
So the council, I guess I wasn't here, but the council passed this resolution, requested that the committee submit its report within 6 months of adoption. And here we are, on March 1st, 4 months later, and the overall committee itself hasn't yet formally met.
So the task force, no, yeah. But I think this is different than the group that's contemplated in the resolution. Because I think that group was postponed under the last resolution. But what I'm trying to say is that what we're doing at DPP is we are still meeting with stakeholders in these groups, or trying to form those groups to address specific issues related to permitting and streamlining.
I appreciate the effort, but I alluded to this, I think, in the last hearing, is if I've been very frustrated, I'm sure my colleagues have as well, about the delays and difficulties with the permitting. We've heard time and time again attempts to streamline and improve, which again are great, but then we're hearing today that there's no timeline to do this. We're coming up on budget. If there are things that need to be in the budget to help this process, and you talked about this at your presentation last month, additional software and the millions and millions of dollars. But if we don't have recommendations from the department to improve things, how are we going to pass legislation that will improve it?
Well, I think we are still we will have recommendations for the council, like I said. So next month we will have more specific ways to streamline. So even though I understand like this task force or this group has not been formally set up or going, but we're trying to gather that information as far as what specific parts we can bring to you to make amendments to ordinances that will help in our permitting.
Okay. Okay, Councilmember Wire, followed by Councilmember Tupola.
Thank you, Chair. And just briefly, okay, I think I understand what you're saying, Director. So the 5-member committee appointed by the council hasn't been set up yet, or has it?
No, it has not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're just talking about the work that DPP is doing to engage stakeholders and then providing feedback, on different pieces of potential legislation or fixes.
Right. Yeah. And I think basically we're trying to do exactly what this group that's contemplated in the resolution is intended to do. So we're already working on those things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. So do you have, you're doing official stakeholder meetings outside of this reso? Is that what I'm hearing, or is it kind of issue specific? And
so we have 3 different stakeholder groups. We've recently, made the invitations to please be part of it. They range from, I don't know, maybe 15 to 25 per group from different industry and community, et cetera. But for say, there's the affordable housing, solar, and then permitting in general. And so far, we want to bring issues to the group for them to discuss and provide feedback. So it is issue-based in that sense.
awesome. How often are those occurring?
So hopefully once a month at least, but it depends. If we have, a bill that we want to propose, we'll bring it up faster or whenever it's needed, basically.
Okay, would it be helpful to have anyone from council or council staff, or is there anyone from council at any of those meetings?
I don't think we have council. It's just industry and then our staff. We can, I don't know if.
Contemplate it maybe and see if it's appropriate.
Okay.
I just bring it up and fleshing it out. I don't know if it is, but it might be useful in terms of keeping us abreast and getting to hear, I think it's good to have DPP and then stakeholders in the same room, right? Because then we're getting to see that, going back and forth and understanding the nuance and the complexities, and then it can make our job a little bit more effective. So potentially.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Director. Mahalo, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Councilmember Tupola.
Thank you so much, Chair. Yeah, thank you, Director, for being here. So I'm just going to share a little bit because I think the reso that came up to form the working group had happened after we had moved a lot of pieces. So a lot of the things that were moving forward were already convening groups. So I'm just going to, and maybe what I'll do, Director, is I'll submit a letter as a council communication to outline all of the different things that we've been working on. But Bill 56 that we're talking about today is basically amending the exemption list.
Excuse me, we're not on Bill 50.
Oh, no, I know. I'm just saying is like when we had worked on all of this, we had broken it up into which ones needed to be legislation, which ones needed to be resolutions, which ones needed to be worked out. So they worked on Bill 6 as self-certification. Bill 58 was the 365-day notification. We are working on Reso 22299 for solar. The 22257 that we're working on today was for building code. We had one in regards to relief workers. So, and I'm working on one for SAI for residential. So all I'm trying to say is that possibly what might be helpful is if we itemize this out so that everyone knows where all of these pieces are at. This Friday, we're convening with the mayor, the director, and industry members from the solar so that we can get that piece a little bit farther. But I do think that maybe if that was given out, then it would be a little bit more clear that progress is being made, but maybe not in a official one working group, but actually in many different working groups, I would say, because the building code guys that are going to discuss, the 3-year to 6-year extension are not the same guys as the solar guys. The solar guys are not the same guys that want the commercial or the residential SAI. So I think we have a lot of different people concerned in their pockets of what we would call streamlining, but they're happening in lots of different resos and bills. So I'll work on that and then just send it out so that this is a little bit more clear to everyone. But we appreciate all the work. You've been very responsive to everyone. Even my constituents who have reached out to you, you've responded back to them. So thank you, Director.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Okay, any further discussion? Director, thank you very much. At this time, we will now proceed with the remote testimony. Madam Clerk? Oh, we did already, okay. So, okay, let's move on to, the Chair would like to recommend that Resolution 23-19 be reported out for adoption, which is the extension of the committee's report, Advisory Committee's report. Any discussion? Any objections or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Okay. Moving on to agenda number 3, Resolution 22-257. The resolution urges the Hawaii State Legislature to amend Chapter 107 of the Hawaii Revised Statutes to require that the counties adopt the Hawaii State Building Code with or without local modifications within 6 years, as opposed to within 2 years after the adoption of those codes by the State Building Code Council. At this time, is there anyone from the administration? If not, let's go, Madam Clerk, to remote testimony. We are now in the proceed with the remote testimony, Madam Clerk. Okay, we do have Mr. Howard Wigg.
Chair, testifier is not logged on.
Okay, so next we have Mr. Daryl Takamiya. Oh.
Hi, I'm here.
Okay.
Aloha, Chair Say, Vice Chair Dos Santos Tam, and members of the committee. My name is Daryl Takamiya. I am the immediate past president of the Building Industry Association of Hawaii. The BIA is in strong support of Resolution 22-257. You have our written testimony, but I would like to add the following. Historically, building codes changed when there was a real need or a flaw discovered in current codes or technology changed. But recently, the mentality behind adopting code changes seemed to be that we need to keep raising the bar regardless of the benefit, feasibility, or cost. Currently, no cost-benefit analysis are being done on any code changes. These changes have historically added cost to new homes and come with many unintended consequences. Our industry builds very safe, efficient homes, and in many cases, the low-hanging fruit has already been picked. All you're left with are diminishing returns where the costs of changes are disproportionate to the benefits. Per the National Association of Home Builders, over 400,000 Hawaii households were not able to afford a new median-priced home in 2022. For every $1,000 price increase in the home, an additional 200 Hawaii families are priced out of the market. Now, keep in mind, these are 2022 statistics, and in 2023, the numbers are going to be worse due to increased interest rates. Also, per UHERO, Hawaii already has the highest regulatory burden in the country by far. We're about 50% more than the next worst state, which is New Jersey, about double that of the average states, and triple that of the lowest state, which is Alaska. And every code change just adds to this burden. With the ongoing housing crisis, inflation, and economic outlook, this is not the time to keep increasing regulatory costs on one of our basic needs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Takamiya. Members, are there any questions for the testifier? Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Takamiya. At this time, we would like to have the in-person testimony, and we'll now proceed with the in-person testimony. Madam Clerk, do we have any?
Chair, there are none.
Great. Members, now we are in discussion. Any discussion? Okay. Councilmember Tupola.
Oh, thank you so much, Chair, and thank you very much for listing this as an agenda item. I did want to make note to everyone that this resolution is suggesting that a change take place in state law. So there really is nothing that we can do here on the county level. And I'm happy to note that there is a House bill moving, HB 681, that's suggesting to change the state law that we are going to be covering in this resolution. Just as some background, because I researched this after the issue was brought up to me in a town hall we had with DPP. For the members' information, the plumbing code was just updated in 2022, and it actually was only updated after, I think the previous time was 20 years prior to that. The building code, we just updated in 2020, and the last time it was updated was 2007. The fire code we did in 2021. Electrical code was 2019, and the building energy code was 2010. All of that to be said, the codes seem to be updating infrequently and not forgotten, but in the law, it's still stated that every 3 years it needs to be updated. So I believe what BIA is suggesting that we do is anything that's making it burdensome for any permitting, that we need to make sure that the law aligns with how the practice is happening. And the practice right now that's happening is it's being updated a little bit infrequently, not in accordance with the law, and that we should align the law with that. And so I do think that this is one of a handful of measures that is going to help streamline the process. It's not the silver bullet. It's a very small suggestion. But at the point we're at with how many permits we have in the backlog, we need to do everything possible. So thank you, Chair, very much for hearing this. And members, I would appreciate any support for this and any other things that can help DPP. Thank you.
Okay, members, any further discussion on this particular measure? Simply, okay, Councilmember Wire.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And mahalo, I just want to say first mahalo to Councilmember Tupola. I think she's really, taking a lot of these permitting and development issues head on. And so appreciate that and her leadership on this. I had wished that Mr. Wig would be here today to provide testimony, just because some of his testimony talks about some things that are concerning, particularly like the importance of timely codes in relationship to FEMA funding and stuff like that. But that's kind of where I'm at. So I definitely want to learn more on this issue, particularly the implications of it. But actually really appreciate the ability to have the conversation today and just to hear more from both Councilmember and, of course, BIA, who has a lot of insight on what's needed to move us forward.
Okay,
and
great.
Mahalo, Chair.
Thank you. Any further discussion? If there is no further discussion, the chair would like to recommend that Resolution 22-257 be reported out for adoption. Any discussion, objections, or reservations? The reason why the chair is having it to be adopted and on to the state legislature, all we're doing is urging them. And if there are two measures that are before the state legislature, this resolution will be just part of the testimony in saying if some changes can be done. And that was it. Okay. So if there's no objections or reservations, hearing none, it's so ordered, it has passed. And it's going to be urging the state legislature to consider looking into the building code. Moving on to agenda number 4, this Bill 56. This bill addresses exemptions from the requirement to obtain a building permit. Members, we have posted to the agenda a proposed Committee Draft 1 version of the bill. For your information, a summary of the amendments is listed on the agenda. Members, we have also distributed a hand-carried Committee Draft 1 version of the bill, OCS 2023-0165/2/28-2023 at 3:03 p.m. proposed by Councilmember Tupola. I will defer to Councilmember Tupola to explain the amendments in her hand-carried Committee Draft 1. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chair. In this new proposed Committee Draft 1, which I worked on with DPP, we changed a few things. So we were working with many people that want to see exemptions that may be outdated, just updated. So we did actually delete out the part where fences above 30 inches weren't going to be permitted. Now, the reason why is because DPP said those fences that are at that height of above the 30 inches on a corner could pose a problem, and they wanted to keep that as a guidance for those permits that want exemptions. On ROH 18-3.1, I had stricken out the component replacement valuation cap, and DPP asked that we raise it due to inflation, but that we not strike it out. So we put in the 7,500 as opposed to 5,000. And just for everyone's information, the last time it was updated was 2018, I believe. So recently that was raised. Now remember, this is only for component replacement. This is not for redoing anything. These are things that already exist in the house and they're being replaced. But unfortunately, what used to cost $5,000 doesn't cost that much. It could be a countertop, a tile in your house. We also did change 18-3.1 B11 as suggested by DPP, 18-3.1 B18 in regards to electrical work. Again, this is the cost being increased due to inflation. We amended the repair work, which we also increased due to inflation, and then any miscellaneous technical and non-substantive amendments. So this was a lot of back and forth, so I apologize that there's another CD, but we wanted to make sure that the department was good with the draft, but also that it was going to be helping homeowners that are all waiting in the pipeline for the permits. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any further questions, members, or discussion?
Thank you. Who am I able to address? Or I guess I'll address the chair and whoever.
Okay, sorry, I was supposed to invite the director up.
Oh, director, sorry.
Okay, Director Apuna.
Thank you, Chair. So we just want to thank Council Member Tupola for working with us on this bill. We think it does provide the correct balance as far as streamlining, but also keeping into consideration health and safety concerns.
Okay, thank you. Now for questions, okay?
I'd like to ask about planter boxes, and I know this seems a little bit pedantic and silly, but in the proposed CD1, it eliminates the exemption for planter boxes not more than 30 inches high. Could you explain why that was eliminated and what the difference, practically speaking, between a planter box that's, say, on a corner and a retaining wall on a corner that's not more than 30 inches high is? Are they not the same thing to a pedestrian?
Actually, yeah, I think that's a good point. I'm not sure what happened there, because that does make sense. I think maybe it's just an error on our part that we didn't catch it.
Thank you.
Vice Chair DeSantos Tam,
Yeah.
what section are you looking at in regards to the
Yeah, sorry, this is page 2, bullet point 6.
bullet point 6, okay?
Yeah. And then I also wanted to ask, Chair, with your indulgence, right now we're looking at, in bullet point 10, up to $7,500 in valuation for different things. And understand the legislature's been dealing with the handyman exemption. Does not requiring a permit for some of this work, in your mind, incentivized unlicensed contracting above the handyman exemption?
I mean, I guess we consider that. I think we try to keep it low enough, but I mean, it's a balance. It's hard to say. We certainly don't want people to work without permits, but I'm not sure at this point.
Chair.
Are you finished, Vice Chair DeSantos Tam? Okay. Councilmember Tupola.
Director, so for number 6, when you and I had gone back and forth, and if you wouldn't mind asking your people again, the first suggestion we had for this was 6 feet and above. And then we were told that 6 feet and above could be a problem on a corner. And that's why we struck it and put it back to actually the original language that was written there. So we can talk offline about that, but just so you know, that's for number 6. For number 10, regarding the raise from 5,000 to 7,500, we actually use the inflation percentage. manage. So right now we're at about 36% inflation. And so we felt like, again, it wasn't going to incur more unlicensed people, but it was reasonable for the cost of materials right now in our economy. So if that makes any sense. And again, members, if you have any other suggestions, now's the time for us to discuss this regarding the exemption list. This mountain of permits that we have is only going to be conquered one permit at a time. So if we can get anyone out of the pipeline that shouldn't be in there, we need to think about that. Some of these items on this exemption list haven't been updated for decades, some have. So I can, you can ask OCS if you want any background on when's the last time certain ones were touched. I went in and tried to do the ones that I thought were reasonable in regards to where we're at right now in 2023. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Councilmember Cordero, followed by Wire.
Thank you. My question for Director Abuna is regarding, so of course we know that this is relating to structures that are also already there. And I was wondering about the relation or I guess relationship or possible conflict, if possible, with ROH Section 21-4.110 nonconformities, because the section states that for nonconforming uses, that ordinary repairs must not exceed 10% of the current replacement cost of the structure within a 12-month period. So if owners of these structures don't need to get building permits, how will the city know if repairs are over the 10% limit and that they're being done?
So this list is exempting, these are the specific things that don't require a permit, but the non-conforming, that's if you're gonna rebuild a non-conforming structure, which I don't think is addressed here. So I don't think there is necessarily a conflict. It's separately treated, yeah.
Okay, got it. Thank you very much for that clarification. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Wire.
Thank you, Chair. Director, I know we talked about this, but then in looking at the CD1, which is great, so mahalo, Councilmember Tupola, I'm just curious, if we're gonna not include electrical, plumbing, and mechanical installations, what's the reason for it being 7,500 versus higher? Does that make sense? Because if we're protecting life and safety, because I know before we talked about the 7,500 limit. I don't know if you have insight on that or thoughts.
Well, I think potentially, I guess, if it is a much higher value, that there could be. I mean, I don't have examples right now, but that a higher level of a permitted or of a structure or other could create other different life safety issues. So we thought 7,500 was good as far as, like Councilmember Tupola said, with regard to the inflationary factor for what is currently allowed, under $5,000. It's just based on inflation. Those same things would be allowed based on inflation. So.
Okay, no, I appreciate that. And I mean, I understand that. I wonder if 75 is really reflective of inflation with how high housing costs and construction delays have gone, but.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's an exact science, but I think it does, it's warranted to raise it because of everything that's happened in the last few years. Yeah. Okay,
I agree with that. I guess I'm just wondering if we can go a little bit higher because of we're protecting the life and safety component, but I understand what you're saying. Yeah, mahalo.
Thank you.
Mahalo, Chair.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, Councilmember Tupola.
Director, if possible, I would like to see it higher as well. Just for clarity, I wanted it higher, and I don't want to push the department into areas they don't want to go. So maybe we just discuss that more, because I also was wondering how we only got 2,500 more, seeing as though labor and all the other costs are factored into that. Again, this is not work that requires electrical, plumbing, or mechanical. This is merely swapping things out in your house for repair. Thank you, Director, for any consideration. Thank you, Chair.
Any further discussion, members? If not, the chair would just like to say this particular measure is just trying to help all the small families as a DIY, do-it-yourself project, right? That's all it is in streamlining it. Until my neighbor complains to DPP and then the inspector goes and says, no, Mr. Say, you're violating the building code. And then I get into problems. But I'm not a DIY person, so don't worry. More as I gotta call the handyman or some of these subs. But so thank you very much, Councilmember Tupola, for the committee draft. May we proceed on now, members, to remote testimony? Clerk? Madam
Chair,
Clerk, do we have any testimony?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, thank you very much. There are no one as far as remote testimony, in-person testimony. Madam Clerk, do we have any?
Chair, there are none.
Great. Okay, at this point, members, we are now in discussion. Okay, if there is no discussion, the chair would like to recommend that Bill 56, 2022 be amended to the hand-carried Committee Draft 1, OCS 2023-0165/2/28/2023 at 3:03 p.m.
Chair, can it be Committee Draft 2?
That would be the next one.
Thank you.
Or we're going to amend it as a hand-carried CD1. No? What's that?
That's a fee further amended.
Okay. So at this point, any discussion on the original CD1? If there is no discussion, no objections or reservations, hearing none, the bill has been amended to the CD1. Now, the next step is that the chair then recommends that Bill 56, 2022, CD1, be reported out for second reading and scheduling of a public hearing at this point in time. Correct, members? Madam Clerk, we're okay? Yep, okay. So are there any discussions that we'll be having another hearing on this measure? Any objections or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. And finally, for today, we have, hold on. Agenda number 5, just an update by the Department of Planning and Permitting regarding the status of all pending land use ordinance amendments. Director Tapuna.
Yes, so I think that everyone has a copy of our latest report, and I'm here for any questions.
Members, do you have the report before you? Okay, any discussions on first? Let's start off with Resolution 19-305, introduced November 8 of 2020. Land use order LUO amendment relating to wind machines. The resolution requires that all future wind machines be located 5 miles from any property boundary. The Planning Commission, for all of us, the status, forwarded a recommendation to the Council on 5/20/21, Bill 28-2021, 1.25 mile setback, Bill 29/2021, 1,500-foot setback, and Bill 30/2021, a 5-mile setback. Passed first reading on 6/2/21. Now incorporated into Bill 10, which will be the Planning Committee of 2022, a 1-mile setback in CD1, and Bill 55/2022, a 1.25-mile setback. Okay, next we have 2022-32 of introduced 2/17/22, Land Use Ordinance Amendment relating to the Chinatown Special District to require a special district permit for distribution of food free of charge on the public sidewalk. DPP transmitted a recommendation to the Planning Commission on January 5th of 2023. Planning Commission voted to recommend denial of the proposed amendment on January 25th, 2023. The recommendation was then sent to the Council on February 1st, 2023. And finally, 22-258, 102722, land use ordinance relating to overhangs to allow overhangs in the required yard and to the right-of-way in Kaimiki. DPP confirmed receipt and provided comments and questions on December 5th of 2022. Okay, and those are the three. Any discussion? If not, yes, Councilmember Wire.
Thank you, Chair. Just quickly. Director Poon, I just wanted to, kind of flesh out number one. Given that since the LUO amendments came out of the Planning Commission, there's been a lot of discussion regarding the turbine setback. Does DPP have an official position now that's changed at all, or what would its position be?
I think it's the same as it's written in Bill 10, the current CD.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks.
Any further discussion? If not, let's proceed on with remote testimony. Do we have any remote testifiers?
Yes, Chair, we have one.
Okay, yes, thank you. Madam Clerk, Miss Angela M. Young. Good morning.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, and the committee. Angela Melody Young, testifying in support and just providing comments. What was discussed was so helpful today because I don't know a lot about DPP. But I just wanted to comment about the plans of automation, just like generally. And I am very supportive of automating the processes. The rationale is this: because technology and apps work. Process automation uses technology to automate complex processes, and this typically achieves the goals of making things faster and integrating data. It is designed to reduce errors and loss of data, all while increasing transparency, communication across departments, and of course, increasing the speed of processing. Government development departments face a number of challenges in dealing with increasing permit volumes, while often undersourced, underfunded, and undersupported. Most critically, without the right building permitting solutions in place to support staff, departments face mounting backlogs, low employee retention, and issues dealing with frequent processing changes required by city and state departments because of updates to legislations that affect work streams. In development, departments often experience increasing citizen and contractor demands for digital self-service and rising permit volumes due in part to the rising need for affordable housing and rapid changes in building codes. So according to this building permitting solution called Clarities, it's a app or a software. It says it's for a government, but I don't know for what jurisdiction, but this is information I'm getting from that software's website. And it says that everything an applicant needs to manage their permit application online is easily accessible through the community portal, accessed through any government website. Applicants can apply and pay for permits online, check their application. So it gives the applicants a sense of control instead of feeling that they have to complain all day. So that's why I'm in support of the automating the processes.
Okay.
And also, in conclusion, Chair,
Thank you very much for your automated testimony. It was excellent as far as going over time from your 1 minute to about a 1 minute 45 testimony. Thank you very much, Ms. Young. Is there anyone else?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Young. At this point in time, we'll now proceed with the in-person testimony. Madam Clerk?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, members, we are in discussion. If there is no discussion, the chair would like to recommend that there being no further business, the meeting is adjourned.